political organization, unit of analysis, individual experiences. This is my informant, leader, second line, and lowest level. This is my sampling. I use propose sampling, data collection, interview, in-depth interview, document, and my analysis I use NVivo software, and we add with phenomenography analysis, verification, triangulation. I think this is popular in qualitative, conclusion, inductive, indiographic. This is the research finding of my research. Communication pattern, decision making. This is NVivo result, yes. Like this, if we use NVivo, I think this is popular in Malaysia for qualitative research. We know that communication pattern to be formed by informal, socialization mechanism, formal, informal, be formed by cross-channel, lateral, grapevine, socialization, media, response of member, formal, upward, downward, and third level, we know alternative media, conventional media, constraint factor, etc. Decision making, like that too. Decision making is form, contact, experience, and dominant authority. Contact, what is the contact? Contact is formed by conducive contact and non-conducive contact, experience, duration, process, step, policy program, dominant, pluralism aspect, regulation. After we know the NVivo analysis, we add with phenomenography analysis. We have to use referential aspect and structural aspect. Referential aspect explore if like this, if someone make a decision this, we only see decision, but what the behind of the decision, we have to structural aspect, yes? And this is the specific of phenomenography. Of course, this is different with phenomenology. From theoretical, we know that phenomenography is the branch of phenomenology. This is the variant of phenomenology. Conclusion, this is my contribution of study. I think phenomenography contribute in a new approach in organizational communication studies. And what my conclusion is, I have to reach the first, the communication pattern in the People Justice Party cover the formal and informal communication pattern. Formal is upward and downward communication pattern. Informal included horizontal communication, cross-channel, diagonal communication, and grapevine communication. And second, the process of decision making is determined by three factors: contact, experience, and authority. Thank you for all. Time's up.
Any questions from the floor?
I'm interested on the I don't know whether they use new media, the Facebook blogs or whatever. And through that process, So the information that they get from the new media, that information, I don't know whether they use it to make a decision or to make a policy based on that, comments or from there's engagement from that.
Yes, PKR elite use the new media to distribute their decision result to constituent. This is non-conventional. We know that here I show to you that in my and this is the conventional, non-conventional, like informal. This is socialization mechanism. Facebook, blog, and the others is used by elite party for distribute their.
I mean not only distribute, but engage with the voters, with the supporters, even the critics, in order for them to formulate the policy. Do they use frequently the new media, Facebook and also blogs or Twitter as well?
Yes. You mean all of new media support the decision making process?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean they use there's a tool where they can engage with the people. So when people engage with them, so based on the engagement, they even in terms of they produce a policy based on that. So does that happen in this process of PKR party, or just they use Facebook just to disseminate news or propaganda or whatever, or there's an engagement with the people? So that's my question.
Yes.
How they use for social mechanism?
I only asked to my informant that what use the new media like Facebook, Twitter, etc. For support the decision making or not. Depend, I think, depend on them, because there is not formal channel, yes, formal channel. They only focus on like meeting, like line of organization structure, like that.
Thank you very much for your one more. Okay, Mohammed Taki Yuddin Ismail. His topic is the monarchy and the party politics in Malaysia in the era of Abdullah Hamid Badawi, 2003 until 2009, the surgeon of the role of the protector.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, good morning to my fellow panelists and ladies and gentlemen. This is a paper written by me and my PhD supervisor, Ahmad Fauzi Abdul Hamid. The focus of our article is the resurgence of the monarchy during the premiership of Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, the 5th Prime Minister of Malaysia. I must thank you, my fellow lecturer, Mr. Azizuddin, for providing a good background on Malaysian politics. It will make my job much easier, I guess. Okay, for those who are still new to Malaysian politics, that's the contemporary Prime Minister of Malaysia, from Mahathir till the present Prime Minister, Mr. Najib Razak. When Abdullah took over the premiership from Mahathir in 2003, he executes what can be termed as the process of demahadirization. There is the process of distancing his administration from the excesses of Mahathir era. The immediate impact of this process can be seen when the ruling coalition managed to stem a historic win in the 11 general election of 2004. But reform and change in the dominant party can create resentment and become a threat to the regime. From 2006, much of Abdullah reform was stopped, and the criticism of Mahathir against his administration, further worsening the situation. It is again this background that the ruling coalition suffers the worst defeat in 12th general election in 2008, when they lost a 2/3 majority and 5 states to the opposition coalition known as Pakatan Rakyat. This paperwork seeks to look at only one of the conservative response within the context of Abdullah reform, is the resurgence of the role of monarchy. The monarch has long been regarded as one of the backbone of federal constitution. In short, it reflects the Malay political domination. Historian Muhammad Abu Bakar, for example, argued that the monarch can be understood as a form of conservative institution, ingredients that need to be defended. Another scholar, Chandra Muzaffar, in his classic book Protector, see the monarch as the symbolic protector of the Malays, especially in the face of a perceived non-Malay threat. Chandra also argued that there exists a symbiotic relationship between the monarch and the UMNO, the dominant ruling party in Malaysia. But in the Mahathir era, this special relationship underwent a crisis following two constitutional crises in 1983 and 1993. For a decade thereafter, it was the monarchy that seems to be protected by UMNO when the crisis managed to clip the power of monarchy. As argued by one scholar, Roger Kershaw, the monarch preferred to maintain a low profile throughout the Mahathir era for fear of further limitation of power by UMNO. Abdullah Badawi is known for his respect for established institutions and the needs for checks and balance. When he took over from Mahathir in 2003, the room was open for the monarch to reassert their role. The Perak royalty should become our focus on this matter. In 2004, the Crown Prince of Perak, Raja Nazrin Shah, gave a public lecture in Singapore regarding the new challenges of monarchy within the context of changing environment. Also joined the concern is his father, the Sultan Azlan Shah of Perak, who urged the government to safeguard the independence of judiciary. As we know, Sultan Azlan of Perak was the former Lord President of Malaysia. And when Anwar was released from prison in September 2004, such event seems to pave the way for the release. And in addition, Abdullah himself was intent to repair the thorny relationship with the judiciary. The Perak royalty is seen as an intellectual monarch. Raja Nazrin himself was educated in Harvard till doctorate level, and in 2007 he refused to fund his wedding reception with public coffer. And this is a very important move, since previously the monarch is frequently associated with the wastage of funds. As time goes by, the monarch seems to interfere more and more in public affairs. I'm not implying interfere in pejorative terms, but power that used to be owned by the monarchy. For example, in 2007, the Conference of Rulers rejected the candidate proposed by the PM for the post of Chief Judge of Malaya. We have to understand that in Mahathir era, it is almost impossible for monarch to reject the recommendation made by the Prime Minister. In another case, Sultan Sharifuddin of Selangor urged UMNO Assemblyman Zakaria Darus to resign following allegation of abuse of power. And this is another sign that the monarch want to interfere in the matters of accountability, even it means sacrificing their symbiotic relationship with UMNO. That is Raja Nazrin Shah, Sultan Azlan Shah, and Sultan Sharifuddin of Selangor. Alright. However, the resurgence of monarchy does not happen on their own initiative. There seems exist the convergence of interest between monarchy and UMNO. From 2006 onwards, the opening of political process by Abdullah start to irritate the conservative in UMNO. There is the hardliner strand. Due to political openness and the proliferation of new media, Malaysians can now discuss the sensitive issues such as ethnicity, religion, and the so-called social contract. And UMNO now see the openness as a destructive move. Not to mention that Abdullah in some cases show his willingness to consider the demand of non-Malay. Given this fact, in the UMNO General Assembly in 2006, UMNO delegates show their anger with Amok mongering speech. And for the second time, the UMNO youth movement also waved the crest. There is the Malay dagger. It is in this situation that UMNO interests converge within monarchy. At a time like this, the need for a buffer was dearly felt to address the perceived non-Malay threat. The disastrous result of Malaysian general election in 2008 conveyed the message that UMNO has lost its hegemony, and the monarchy capitalized this situation quickly to check and balance the executive power. There are some developments that need to be discussed. For example, in Perlis and Terengganu, both rulers reject the recommendation from Abdullah pertaining the appointment of Chief Minister of the state. This is another case that never happened before under the Mahathir era. And a month after that, the Sultan of Kelantan urged the Malay to preserve the Malay supremacy. A notion of Malay supremacy is a very sensitive notion in Malaysia, especially among the non-Malay. And this is why some quarters see this speech as unbecoming. But within UMNO, they now have new ally. They seem to forget that it was Mahathir that curtailed the monarchy power, and now they are not hesitate to rally behind the monarchy in the face of common enemy. And to capitalizing the situation, for example, the Crown Prince of Pahang, Tengku Abdullah and Tengku Naipidan Negeri Sembilan urged UMNO to restore the power of monarchy. As we can see, there exists a reciprocal and mutual understanding on this matter. We're going to turn to the constitutional crisis in Perak in February 2009. This is the classic case of how monarchy role as a defender and protector come into play. Perak is one of the 5 states controlled by Pakatan Rakyat. But the Perak government is seen as a fragile coalition. One of the reasons because the DAP assemblymen, Democratic Action Party, they always seen as to issue controversy, issue a controversy statement pertaining the position of non-Malay. More than that, the conservative in UMNO see it was DAP who exert the real power in the administration. Such situation was consistently capitalized by UMNO through its newspaper Utusan Malaysia. In other words, Utusan has physiologically preparing the masses for political takeover that happened in February 2009. Okay. The downfall of Governor of Perak took place when 4 Pakatan assemblymen jumped ship to BN. Instead of calling for new election, which is the best option available, the Sultan of Perak granted assent to Barisan Nasional to form a new government. Some accuse that there is a backdoor negotiation between Najib, who engineered the defection. We have to bear in mind that Najib at this time is already a Prime Minister defector, since Abdullah has already stated his willingness to resign in April. The role of Najib in the crisis can be regarded as a pull factor. We have to understand that Najib has aristocratic background, and this subsequently put him as a natural conservative position. At the same time, while Najib showed his side of real politics, we cannot ignore 3 other push factors, and that is the lack of incompetence of Pakatan in dealing with the situation. Some 3 examples. When Nizar, the former Chief of State of Perak, refused to cede power, he used the phrase "sembah derhaka," treacherous homage. This is a very sensitive phrase among the Malay, and such impression was bolstered when Pakatan launched aggressive protests against Raja Nazrin in Kuala Kangsar. And this is something that never happened before in the history of modern Malaysia. I think this is the most important factor that irritates UMNO and the Malay ruler. And lastly, when Kapal Singh, one of the DAP members, threatening to bring Sultan Azlan to court for his decision. These 3 events seem to vindicate UMNO allegation that Pakatan government has anti-monarchy stance. This is some of the pictures of events that took place in Kuala Kangsar in February 2009. As you can see, the Pakatan supporters performed a roadblock and human shield towards the Raja Nazrin car. And the fact that most of the protesters come from past supporters irritate UMNO and the Malay ruler even more. Those with the white turban. Alright. On the positive notes, while it seems that the monarch still cannot escape to be above politics, they also have to learn the bitter lesson of Mahathir era. There is the UMNO politicians are unpredictable. So they have to be seen as supporting the rights of all Malaysians. In October 2008, for example, and in the first time in history, the Conference of Rulers openly declared to safeguard the rights of all communal groups. And Abdullah era was also marked by the resurgence of the Muslim religious conservatism. And again, the monarchy played the role of defender of all Malaysians. In 2006, for example, Raja Nazrin criticized one Muslim NGO group who demand to ban a popular biscuit for allegedly promoting symbol of cross. And in 2008, the Sultan Sharifuddin again criticized the religious bureaucrat for the recommendation of banning of yoga without consulting the Conference of Rulers. In uncertain political climates, it seems that it is not only UMNO who tried to use the monarchy as a buffer, but also the opposition. This is due to the fact that the monarchy is seen as a source of justice. This role is not new, since the opposition always resort to this method since the day of Reformasi in 1999. This was illustrated when the Coalition of Clean and Fair Election, or BERSEH, demand the interference of rulers in their demand of electoral reform. As we know, the second BERSEH rally took place in last July, and again they also demand the ruler to interfere in this matter. Some concluding remarks. While post-Mahathir era witnessing the resurgence of monarchy as protector, its role has been adjusted within the framework of new politics. And while UMNO regains its natural ally in its defense of conservative values, they could no more count monarchy as their exclusive partner. And the third one, due to its new role as unifier, the monarchy is the only institution capable of holding together different political forces. And lastly, the Perak constitutional crisis suggests the continuing clash between feudal and democratic values. With that, I end my presentation. Let's conclude.
Okay. Do you have any question? Yes.
I know this kind of research is very good and very challenging, and of course very critical issues that they were highlighted. By the way, I just want to ask you, most of the statements you made here, maybe the results, maybe the methods, maybe the chronology, is it a statement made by the researcher or made by somebody else? If made by somebody else, you should highlight who's the source. You should respect the source. Okay, fine. Number two, to me it's just a chronology of events, what's happening in Malaysian politics. However, you could generalize it, you could analyze it in the form of answers, which means form of research too. But as a researcher or maybe as an academician, I found that some of the words you use are very drastic, something that to me is quite, I can't present this kind of words if I am a government servant. Maybe they will slash my belly, maybe before. But you dare to highlight some of the words. I think you are quite brave enough. I think it's okay for you, but not for us like formulation. How's your comment?
First, this is a portion of my study on Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. I'm doing a thesis of PhD on Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. It's called, the title of my thesis is Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, the legacy of neoconservative. Thank you for the question. Actually, this is the portion of my PhD thesis, which I'm waiting for my viva. And this thesis is about Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, and I'm trying to highlight some of the developments that occurred pertaining his attempt to make a reform in Malaysia. We have to bear in mind that the resurgence of monarchy, the subject of monarchy is a widely neglected subject in academic sphere. This is admitted by Anthony Milner, a scholar from Australian National University, when he gave a lecture in UKM in 2011. So what I'm trying to suggest here is how the monarchy reassert their role as a protector of the Malays. We have to bear in mind that in Mahathir era, the monarchy seems like shy to play their role effectively in Malaysian politics. Seems like shy to play the role effectively. But you have to look at the development that happened. That is starting from 2004 2004 that Raza Nazrin start to give an open lecture pertaining the importance of a monarchy. And from that moment we see the monarchy plays more and more role in the political affairs in Malaysia. And this is what I call resurgence of the monarchy as a protector of Malays. And the role is dearly felt after the 12th January election in 2008, which I have discussed before. And regarding your statement, whether some of the statement I make, whether this is my statement or is somebody's statement, I like to stress here that most of the statement I put in my presentation is my statement. It's my statement. Of course, there are one or two theoretical framework that I discuss here, such a work from historian Muhammad Abu Bakar and Chandra Muzaffar. But what I'm trying to highlight here is the clash. Of course, we see in one aspect we see the resurgence of the role of monarchy, but at the same time, pertaining of what happened in Perak in 2009, we see there's a continuing clash between feudal and democratic values. I think it is not whether this is sensitive issues or not. Of course, I'm a Malaysian. I'm a loyal citizen to my king. But from the academic perspective and academic sphere, I think it is not too sensitive to discuss these matters.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I think I have two points or two questions that I want to raise. I'm much more curious to find out from you, why do you think the monarchy has begun to assume new roles? What are the factors actually that push them to assume new role? Or is this really a survival strategy of the monarchy itself? Because they were really almost in oblivion during the Mahathir era. They were not really playing. They were perhaps the era wasn't courting the palaces to solve problems. So is this really actually the monarchy itself trying to make sure that they remain relevant for today's society? That's one. Second, of course, your discussion and your discourse is going to be very limited to party politics because that's what you're trying to do. But I must say, within these four walls, that I have a lovely relationship as a woman in Malaysia to the palace. On one hand, I don't feel that the palace does anything much except play politics to the various party politics for their own survival. That's my point of theory. Yeah? But I have to say that for women's issues, many of our problems actually have been helped by the palace. So that's why I said I have a lovely relationship. Case of divorce that took 10 years, 15 years, secretly went to the palace behind doors, and then thing got affected. Or even the case in Pahang, or even this yoga thing, So in a sense, sometimes women groups also turn to the palace and use it as our last resort. So I have that is a comment on my part, which I also think that here the women's groups or the individual women use the palace.
I agree with your two statements in this matter. I truly agree with that. First, what I'm trying to see here is the interplay between what happened in Abdullah era and the resurgence of monarchy. Of course, in Mahathir era, what I say from the beginning, the monarchy seems too shy to play a high-profile role, because the previous two constitutional crises.
Hello.
As argued by one scholar, they fear that if they play more and more in public affairs, Mahathir, we know Mahathir is a very unpredictable person. He will curtail more the power of monarchy. And when Abdullah come his power in 2003, I think there is a sense of hope in monarchy in one extent.